Hello, everybody. It's your girl, Lauren Ree, right here on Water Ice Radio. And as you know, it is time for the Lauren Ree Live Show. And I am super excited about our show today because I have a really good guest. But first, let me take care of some business. Shout out to my boy, Jay the Gentleman. He could not be here, everybody. He wanted to be here, so he's here in spirit. Jay, what's up? So he will be here soon. So don't worry. He's not gone. He'll just not going to be here for this one. We'll get on him later about that. But let's jump right into the interview. My guest right now is taking over the Philly podcast scene. He's laughing because he's being humble about it, but he is for sure. I've been watching him do his podcasting thing for some time now and really truly inspired about what he's doing. He has interview people from Chill Moody all the way up to former mayor, Governor Arundel. So he has done everyone across the spectrum. So I am happy to introduce today's guest, Kevin Chemidlin from the Philly Who podcast. Thanks for coming in, Kevin. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for coming in again. We both have equally busy schedules. Yeah. This podcast, people just think we come and sit down and talk to people, right? It's a lot that comes along with it, correct?
Yeah. It's everything but that.
Actually, we just were talking about it's everything but just sitting and talking. But you have kind of built this empire really with Philly Who, because you're also a blogger as well, correct? So I just kind of want to get into a little bit of your background first, and then we can kind of transition into what you're doing today. Yeah. So you're from Lancaster.
I'm from Bethlehem.
Bethlehem. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were from Lancaster.
No worries. There's not a lot of stuff on the internet about me right now, so I'm surprised if you know anything.
But you did move to Philly in 2010 to come to Temple, right?
That's right, yeah.
Shout out to our Temple Owls in the building. There's a lot of them here. Jay and Hector are from Temple. So how was that, like a big transition from you from being from Bethlehem and coming into like a big city like Philadelphia?
It was the transition, there was like an A and a B time in my life.
Right.
It was, before I came here and then after I came here.
Okay.
And so, I remember coming to visit Temple. I was looking at colleges. I had looked at Penn State, Westchester, a couple other ones that are, kind of their own thing, not really in a city. They're not very urban.
Okay.
And they're okay. And then I came to visit Temple, and I didn't even do like an organized tour. I just, like, a buddy went to school here and he showed me around, and immediately I was like, my gosh, this is amazing. So yeah, it was great. I came down here and just fell in love with the vibe and the energy and just so much opportunity, but also you got that small town feel,
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, I'm here. Like,
this is where I'm going to be.
Put, yeah.
So, what did you actually study at Temple?
I studied computer science.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of different from what you're doing right now.
Different.
Why did you go in that direction?
Well, growing up as a kid in Bethlehem, I was always on my computer making websites, just messing around. Like, I would make some videos sometime, and I really liked going into the code of the software. Mm-hmm. And when I picked the major, it was just a form that you had to fill out when you applied, because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And so, I was just like, computer science. I'm good at computers. What the heck? I didn't realize it was actually writing a bunch of like really hard code until I got to my first couple classes. And I'm sitting there, and I remember sitting there in the first class, the first computer science class, and they're like putting code on the board. I'm like, what have I gotten into?
Right, like, I don't know, what is this? This is not what it was like back at home, right?
It's like, yeah. So, but, kind of stuck with it. It interested me and stuck with it and got a degree in it. And then the first 4 years out of school, I was a software developer at an insurance company.
Nice.
Yeah.
So fun fact about you actually co-founded something at Temple called the Owl Capellas, correct?
Yeah.
So you sing.
I do.
So talk a little bit about that. Where did you do that in high school as well, or were you always singing?
So no, not at all.
Okay.
So senior year of high school, I on a whim went out for the school play, and I just at that point was just kind of, I had played guitar a little bit, self-taught guitar, and like maybe sang in the shower a bit like everybody, but I said, all right, I'm gonna try this senior year, what the heck. And I got in and I got the lead part in the musical.
Wow.
And
what play was it?
The Sound of Music.
Sound of Music.
I was Von Trapp because I could play guitar, so they wanted me to do both. And I loved it, and I couldn't believe I had never sang with people before,
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got to school, there was word going around that there was this co-ed a cappella group starting up, and I actually auditioned for it.
Okay.
And that's how I found out that I'm a bass singer. I didn't even know when I walked in and auditioned with the one of the other co-founders. So found out that I was a bass, and they're like, yeah, you should probably join this a cappella group. And I did, and we started it from scratch. And just this past spring, they competed in the international championships. So you ever seen Pitch Perfect?
Of course.
So that competition, a cappella, 8 years into its existence, competed, and they didn't place. They didn't win place or show.
Okay.
But I was the proudest grandpa seeing those kids up on that stage, because we never, ever thought that
it would go that far.
Yeah.
So that's interesting when you see movies like Pitch Perfect, kind of like, it's almost like kind of like fraternity, sorority kind of life.
Oh, totally.
So what was your experience like being a part of like an a cappella group? Like, were you guys always together? Did you tour around with other schools and stuff like that?
So I say, one, I wasn't in a fraternity, but I was, because of the a cappella group. And also, I tend to tell people that I majored in a cappella and minored in computer science really in practice, even though my degree doesn't say that.
I like that.
Right? So, and then that's how I learned to read music and kind of do a lot of the stuff really that I do today with the podcast. But the community was what it was all about. Like, not only the group, they become your brothers and sisters, but the a cappella community itself in colleges is really, it's so much fun. Like, you could, say you get a gig in New York City or any other city, just some random gig.
Right.
You just hit up an a cappella group at another school, and they'll be like, yeah, come crash with us, and we'll have a party and sing all night long. And it's just so cool.
I was gonna say, so do you guys battle like they do on?
Oh yeah.
Pittsburgh? So it's a real thing.
So we try.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't really know that, what you see in like a cappella, like you see an a cappella song with like 10 to 18 people like making all the noises, and it sounds like an actual song. That takes months and months of rehearsal to figure out. There's no way you can just get into an empty pool, and just like, let's just do this song. But we try. It doesn't usually work out, but we try.
Cool. So computer science, a cappella singing, also self-taught guitar player. Where does podcasting fit in all of that?
So it took me a long time to realize this, but it's right in the middle.
Okay.
So the thing is, my junior and senior year at Temple, we recorded 2 albums, 2 EPs. And when we did that, it was all of our first time in the studio.
Okay.
And so we went to a studio, Silvertone Studios out in Ardmore. And while we were there, I just fell in love with the audio production. And I became really good friends with the owner and producer, and started just kind of showing up to his studio, and he was showing me the ropes of how to use the software, where to put the microphones, things like that. And so I never really did that professionally per se, but I got some really good professional sort of shadowing experience. So when the idea came to start a podcast, it really was the combination of audio, engineering, sort of music, because podcast has rhythm to it, right?
Absolutely.
And computer science, the online presence, the RSS feed, the website, all these things. So really,
the stuff that people don't see behind the scenes,
which takes up a lot of time, if not more time than the actual audio itself.
Yes.
So that's why it's worked out so well for me, because it is the confluence of these 2 seemingly random sort of skill sets and sets of experience that I have.
Nice. So last year, May 2018, correct?
Yep.
The Philly Who podcast kind of came to life.
Yeah.
But before we get to how amazing the podcast is, talk to us about how you came up with the concept of Philly Who.
So at that point, it was around December of 2017.
Okay.
And I was listening to a ton of podcasts, just How I Built This, The Tim Ferriss Show, lots and lots of stuff. And as I was listening to these national and international figures tell their story, especially on How I Built This and a little bit Tim Ferriss, those are the 2 that I listen to a lot. I would think to some of the Philly figures that I knew of,
right?
Like founders of companies, performers, things like that, who I kind of knew had incredible stories, and thought, those people need to be heard on this type of platform. Now I know that at the time there were a couple of shows that were kind of starting out and that already existed that kind of did the same thing, but I didn't really find them. So I thought that nobody was doing it. And then I just got so excited about the idea of creating a show like that. I'll never forget walking into work at the insurance company. I took the subway into work, walking up, and there was a particular day in December where it just kind of clicked in my head. And I felt that like really early in the morning caffeinated sense of excitement, like, oh my God, I want to do that right now. And so thought, I think maybe I could hold a conversation. Why not give this a try? Everyone else is starting a podcast, right?
That's so crazy because we've actually had that same aha moment, as Oprah likes to call it.
Yeah.
I was at work at my cubicle, and it was like, I want to do a podcast. And I literally was on Instagram scrolling, and I happened to see an ad for an internet radio station that said, hey, do you have an idea for a podcast? Literally like an epiphany moment. So that's how this came about as well. So
and you guys were probably doing it long at that point where I thought I looked. And what I know now is that I had no idea how to find podcasts.
Okay.
Right now I know how to look for them, but I'm actually glad that I didn't, because if I thought that there were others that existed, I never would have done this. I would have like, oh, someone else is doing it.
So you started the podcast, and 6 months in, you had 10,000 streams already. Like, how overwhelming was? I mean, I know people like to talk about like the success of it all, but sometimes they don't understand that this could kind of sort of be overwhelming for us when we're kind of like the success happens so fast. Was it overwhelming for you?
In a couple of ways, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things where like I didn't think that this would actually happen, that it would blow up like this, like actually happen, but part of the vision was that happening, so like on one hand, I'm kind of not surprised because this is what I tried to do, and so I'm like, I thought that taking these steps would make this happen, and it worked. But then at the same time, I'm like, it actually worked. Like, are you kidding me? That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, there's especially overwhelmed because I had never been a host of anything before or really known. Like I meet people sometimes that know me and I don't know them, and that's like, what?
Isn't
like,
that a crazy feeling? Yeah.
And then just in general, like the responsibility of the self-ordained decider of who the Philly people who should be heard are is a huge responsibility. If you're going to say that, you need to make sure that I don't even know. Like you need to make sure that you're looking outside of your lens. You're finding the right people. You're not just kind of like featuring your friends, stuff like that. Like if you're going to be the one that says, hey, I'm going to have these people on who are Philadelphia, you got to back that up by finding the right people.
Absolutely. And you just touched on something. How important is it for anyone, not just in podcasting, but anyone who has a vision, an entrepreneurial vision, to actually see beyond the smaller scope? Because you said, of course, you thought about having all of these streams, but sometimes we kind of dim our own light. So how important is it for us to, have positive thinking going through this whole process? Because there's ups and downs all the time.
Oh, yeah. It's everything. I mean, what I tell people is, whenever you're trying to build something or do something, you got to think about what excites you the most. Like when you're thinking about this, what gives you that excitement in the pit of your stomach that you had in the cubicle, right? That I had walking out of the subway, that, oh my God, I want to do this. There's something about it that makes you feel that way. So if you can identify what that is and harness that, that's what's going to drive you through the days when you have to do all this 95% other stuff that, I don't even know how to make a video or make a website, do all this other stuff. And so if you can picture yourself, whatever it is, be shameless. You don't got to tell anybody. So like, I'll picture myself interviewing Will Smith, picture yourself being famous, whatever gets you going.
Right.
That little pit of excitement is what you got to harness. And that'll get you through the really tough times. And really, without that, you can't build anything. You can't do anything. So I think it's everything.
Great. That fire burning, I know exactly what that fire burning feels like. And you definitely, sometimes you don't tell people what you kind of like envision yourself doing. I'm huge on vision boards. Yeah. A lot of people like to do them in the beginning of the year, and then, they just throw it in a closet or whatever. I change my vision board throughout the year because some things may not be working. You got to kind of like change it up, but continuously keeping that positive vision and positive image of
Where
what's
do you
going
keep
on.
the vision board?
I keep the vision board in my living room. I have like...
It's always up?
It's always up.
Love it.
And I did my vision board different. This is a tip for anybody who does vision boards. I know sometimes they like to do it on poster board and do like glue sticks and tape. Because I like to change it, I do push pins. I have a cork vision board. Yeah. So I take the stuff that I was like, I don't know if that's I tried it, don't know if it worked a little bit, change the image or add stuff to it all the time. So it's really cool.
Yeah. See, that's the key is as you learn more information, you got to change the vision.
Yeah.
Because, you can't hold yourself to whatever you thought might be, like a year ago, whatever like that, because you didn't have enough information there. You're probably wrong about a bunch of stuff. So if you change it as you go, but still have it and have it be that like North Star, you can do whatever you want.
Absolutely. So talking about guests, you touched on how you got to make sure if you're going to do something with Philly, making sure the right people from Philly are you're spotlighting them. What kind of is your process when you're picking someone to be a part of the Philly Who podcast?
Yeah, so that's something that I'm just now sort of changing and getting to a state where I think it fulfills that responsibility, right? So at first in building the show, it was just who I can get in the room, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of my network at the time. So because I was so heavily involved in technology and stuff like that, you're going to see a lot of startup founders, kind of entrepreneurs, stuff like that. Because it was just through that sort of one lens of my life at the time. What I'm working on now is getting outside of my lens by getting suggestions from everyone else. Like, it doesn't matter who I want to talk to. Who do the people of Philadelphia want to hear from, right?
Yeah.
Because I've gotten it now. I don't really have to worry about getting people in the room as much. Like, I can kind of say, hey, look, we've had this, we've had that, come talk. And people generally do. So it's about finding people who've lived different lives than I have, who are from different backgrounds. Who do they want to hear? Who do they idolize? What stories do they want to hear?
Absolutely.
And then mixing it all together and trying to present a list of Philadelphians that's diverse in human demographics, in where they are in their journey, an up-and-comer, an established legends, like how mature is their story, be diverse there, and then just a diversity of industries as well, like not just startup founders, not just entrepreneurs. Let's talk to more musicians. Let's talk to more, civic leaders, things like that.
Yeah. So I love on your website that you have an option to submit a nominee to be on Philly Who. So that's you actually getting that insight from who we want to hear from. I thought that was amazing because there's so many unspoken lost talent in Philly that people don't know about. So have you been seeing the submissions come in really heavily?
Yeah, it has. So between that and just like Instagram DMs and connections through other people, that's actually probably, to go back to your question before, the most overwhelming part is that, so far the show has been weekly. So that's 52 people a year if we release every week. And there are way more than 52 Philadelphians whose stories need to be heard, right?
Absolutely.
So, there's a ton of people who are dying to share their story, rightfully so. Their story should be heard. But it is a little bit overwhelming to say, hey, we can't get to everybody right now.
Right.
And so, it's a funnel, right? We get the suggestions in, the Instagram DMs, I'm at an event. Hey, what about this person? Would you be interested? Oh, okay. Put it in the iPhone note. And like I said, just in these past few weeks, I'm starting to grow my team and set a process up around that. Like, how can we capture all these and have that pool where once a quarter or whatever, we can look at and craft and curate that list of people. But what I tell people is there's lots and lots of people who I fully intend to invite onto the show.
Right.
I just can't invite everybody right now. I was talking to somebody, a local startup founder, and I was like, listen, like I'm talking like Q1 2020 or something crazy. Like I fully intend to have you on the show.
Wow.
Would love to. But we just, like I said, I can't get to everybody right now.
Nice.
So, and I like to tell people that the show's retrospective too. There's really no rush, to tell the story. I mean, there is. I want to get as many people as quickly as possible, but also like, we'll take our time.
Yeah. So with that, let's take a quick break, and we come back. I have some more questions about the podcast, but I also have some questions just about more entrepreneurial stuff, like the importance of networking, building a team, and different things of that. So everybody, again, we have Kevin Chemidlin here. He is the host and he is the creator and founder of the Philly Who podcast. This is such a great conversation.
I'm loving it.
I'm psyched about it. It's your girl, Lauren Reed, right here on Water Ice Radio. We will be right back. Please do not go anywhere. And we are back, everybody. It's your girl, Lauren Reed, right here on Water Ice Radio. I have Kevin Chemidlin here with me from the Philly Who podcast. I'm just so glad I'm not butchering his name today. We practiced before we started. So we having a great conversation about just building your podcast and how you got started. But I want to talk a little bit about networking and what that looks like. I know for myself, I was not the one to kind of like put myself out there, but I know I needed to be in the room with those certain people, right? So how was it for you first getting out there, networking with people, kind of getting them to know Kevin and what Philly Who was? So
I have to give a shout out to Rec Philly. And
shout out, Rec Philly has been here before. Shout out to Dave.
Yeah. I've seen that one. So around March of last year, I went to South by Southwest to the Amplified Philly House.
Yeah.
And at that point, so it was March. Remember, I said that kind of had the idea for the show in December. Didn't really start working on it until probably February or March.
Okay.
And so I didn't really tell anybody there I kind of said, yeah, I'm thinking about starting a podcast or getting into podcasting, but I didn't say like I'm starting the Philly Who podcast. Will you be on the show? That type of thing. And so I was at the Amplify Philly house the entire time that it was open. So 2 days there, dawn till dusk or whatever, and later, way later than dusk. And just meeting people and seeing what they're up to, seeing why they're there. If they're at that house, they love Philadelphia. They're in Texas. Like, what's the story here? And, on one hand, it was very genuine. Like, I was just happy to meet all these people who were as pumped about Philly as I was. But also, I kind of knew that once I was ready to tell people what I was doing and ready to say, hey, I'm making this podcast. What do you think? Like, would you be on it? Or do you have any advice or stuff like that?
Right.
If they already knew me as somebody who loved Philadelphia and generally was just a helpful, nice guy,
right.
I'd be more than just an annoying line in their DMs or inbox,
right.
looking for their time because, you gotta, nobody's going to answer that. So it was like 2 days of like pressure cooker networking where, everyone was just in one place. Nobody was leaving because what else are you going to do? We're all in Austin. I mean, yeah, South by Southwest is pretty cool, but like everyone stayed in the house and we all just got to know each other. And then a lot of those people like Chill Moody, like Rick Nucci, like Todd Carmichael became my first guests on the show. Yeah. So I would not be where I am now without that heavy networking because it really is everything. Like, money is a dollar sign. Your net worth is your network, for sure. Yes,
absolutely. I love that saying. And how often do you feel like you get out to continue that networking?
Yeah. Not as much as I used to these days.
Because you're busy now.
Yeah, it's funny because now like I don't really get out and network, and I also don't get a chance to listen to podcasts really anymore because I spend so much time like working
doing
on
your
them,
own. Yeah.
But I do. I love to get out there and meet new people, especially if there's someone like now. My network is it's pretty big. That's another good thing about podcasting is you get to know a ton of people that you otherwise would never ever get to meet.
Yeah.
So the network has grown a lot. But I still love to hear about people that I haven't met or haven't heard of yet.
Absolutely. So you have a production company called Q9. Talk to the people a little bit about that and how that came about.
So basically, a little bit through Rec Philly as well.
Okay.
So I was at an event at La Colombe Coffee, and Rec Philly co-founder Dave Silver came up to me and said, "Hey man, have you thought about freelancing your podcasting production?" And I said, "Actually, yes, I absolutely have." Because at the time I was working on my show. This is about August of 2018. I had my show. I had left my full-time job, and I was just doing freelance like software development work, and I didn't want to keep doing that. So I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do freelance production for podcasts." And he said, okay, I got a couple people you might want to meet. And so I started talking with different companies, individuals who have ideas for podcasts, who want to make them essentially, but don't know how. And started getting work, started making shows.
Yeah.
Probably, I'd say late March, early April, my first major show, or our first major show, I should say, at Q9 will be launching. It's with Comcast, NBC Universal Lift Labs.
Nice.
It's called Ideas Elevated. It's a show for entrepreneurs. So that's been the big fish, the main squeeze for Q9 for a little bit. But yeah, it's just kind of taking what I do with Philly Who, which is, curate interviews, have them recorded, do a ton of editing, add music, make it a good listening experience, and distribute it out to as many people as we can.
Nice. Can you talk a little bit about what the Lift Lab is?
Yeah, so Lift Labs is a division of Comcast NBC Universal, and they're kind of like their startup incubator arm, right? So every year they have a startup incubator, 10 companies, really, really hot startups based around media somehow come in, and they work at Lift Labs and get access to tons and tons of resources for 3 months. And then they go back to wherever they're from and they continue growing their company. So that show, Ideas Elevated, is going to not only tell the stories of these companies as they go through this accelerator and what they learned and how they benefited, but it's also going to have interviews with other entrepreneurs and other people who just might have information that could help entrepreneurs. So like Michelle Caffrey of the Philadelphia Business Journal did an episode about how early founders should learn how to talk to the media.
Okay.
Because a lot of early founders don't know. They don't know what off the record means. They don't know this. They don't know that. We're going to have Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. So he's going to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
And he talks about a pitch. Like,
wow, how to do a pitch.
Who else would you want to hear from
Exactly.
about pitching than Kevin O'Leary? So like I said, that show is going to be launching really, really soon. And it's just going to be a great show for entrepreneurs. So stuff like that is what Q9 is going to do. It's going to not only create more creative original shows, but also, you know, if a company or a creator has an idea for a show and just needs a way to get there, that's where Q9 is going to help.
Nice. I really congratulations on that. That's
Thanks.
huge.
Yeah, I haven't really announced any of this yet. So this is
exclusive stuff, guys.
Exclusive
stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. So one thing I do love about you, Kevin, is that you like live and breathe Philly. Of course, the Philly Hoop podcast, but you love Philly, right? So one interesting thing about you is that you're a huge baseball fan.
Yeah.
So of course, you know, I got to ask you, how do you feel about Bryce Harper coming to the Phillies?
I love it. I'm so pumped. It's so exciting. So I will say, grew up in Bethlehem. I grew up a Mets fan.
Okay.
And I'll probably be a Mets fan till the day I die. But my sports Philly fandom in the past 10 years, as everything else in my life, you know, has revolved around Philly. You can't
There are
help.
no fans like Philly fans.
No. And, you know, I didn't understand that until I moved here. And so now, like, I don't know what, like, I can't not root for the Mets because, you know, my whole family roots for the Mets. But, man, you can't help but love this Phillies team that's coming at us right now, right?
Like crazy.
With Bryce and all the moves they made. And, you know, as a baseball fan, so I've been to almost every single.
I was just going to say that. 26 out of 30?
That's right. I've been to 26 out of 30 of the Major League Baseball parks.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Grew up playing baseball and really got into music and sound in high school when I, like, had a broken leg because I was always playing baseball. That was the thing. That's what I did. I was a baseball player.
Okay.
Broke my leg freshman year of high school. It took like 2 years to come back from it, and that was kind of that. Like those are two pretty key years to miss. So I just love the sport and the thought of Citizens Bank Park hopping the way it's going to this year with that team and with the other teams that the Phillies are going to play. Like, I cannot wait to go to Mets Phillies games and just watch and enjoy. It's going to be a hell of an atmosphere.
Your family going to come down for those games?
I think they will. I think they're going to. I was thinking about it. I'm like, I wonder if they probably don't, but like half Mets, half Phillies hats, because like that's how I
that's
feel.
That's
like,
the idea.
I love both. I love both so much. My family's going to be wearing Mets gear, though, so they may not sit with me.
I get it. So what else about Philly culture that you really, really love?
There's no pretension. You know, we are the 5th largest city in the country, and with the people that you meet, you would never know that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you ask anybody. I mean, my 9th episode of my podcast, me, some kid who's never done journalism, never done audio production, had no business doing a podcast, was with Todd Carmichael, the CEO of La Colombe.
It's a great guy.
And you know, $1 billion brand.
Yeah.
He had me in his office for 2 hours and we just chatted. Who does that? That's only going to happen in Philly.
Yeah.
You go to another city. I mean, I've never lived there, so you know, we might throw shade. But you know, New York, San Francisco, I feel like I go there and like everyone like doesn't have time to even say hello to anybody, right? So there's no pretension, and Philly loves Philly. Like, you ask any company or venture that's been here, their first investment was Philadelphia because the people here want to see other Philadelphians succeed.
They do.
It is. It's brotherly love, truly brotherly and sisterly love. Because brothers fight harder than anyone, right? We're a little, you know, we're rough around the edges, but they also love harder than anyone, and that's what Philly is.
I think it's a huge misconception that we don't support each other, but I feel like that's all Philly does is really support each other, and I just love the fact that you embrace the Philly culture so much. Yeah. Do you think you'll ever move?
I don't plan to right now.
Okay.
I mean, my goodness, you know, like life is life, right? But
right.
Like, why would I? Like, if I do, there's got to be some crazy reason that I'm not even thinking of right now to pull me out of here, because, you know, it really, like, it's got the opportunity of a major city, because all my friends from college went to other cities. You know, for opportunity, for wanderlust, or just because some people in Philly got this weird, you know, inferiority complex about Philly. They're like, why would you stay in Philly? I'm like, why would you leave here? And they're all coming back, right? I'm like, I want to live here. I want to be here. It's given me everything I ever wanted and more. So why would I ever leave?
Nice.
So my plan is to be here for a very, very long time.
I love it. So, Philly culture, you're a part of the music scene. So what are like some of your favorite music venues to go to when you get an opportunity to hit, you know, when you're out and about?
I mean, my favorite part is kind of like with people discovering new ones.
Okay.
But my regulars, so I'm actually a really big electronic music fan.
Okay.
So I'm always at the recently renamed Franklin Music Hall.
Franklin Music Hall, yep.
I'm there all the time, seeing different DJs and stuff like that, because I do some of that on the side as well. I create electronic music. But like if on a day when I just like hit up World Cafe Live and see who's playing, and the less I know about the artist, the better. And just you'll get the most passionate fans in a small concert venue with 30 people, because they're there to see that act. They're pumped. They know every word. They know the musicians probably. That's my favorite part of the music scene is discovering those little tiny niches that, aren't really that big and maybe never will be, but to the people who are in it, it's the biggest thing.
Oh, Kevin, this conversation is so good. I don't want it to end, but we're going to take a quick break. Sure. And then when we come back, we're going to wrap this all up, have a couple fun questions for you. And again, everybody, I have Kevin Chemidlin here from the Philly Hoop Podcast. He is the host and he is the founder. He loves everything Philly. That's why we love him here at waterice.com. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We are back, everybody. It's your girl, Lauren Reed, right here on Water Ice Radio on the Lauren Reed Live Show. And again, I have this amazing guest, Kevin Chemidlin from the Philly Hoop Podcast. He is the creator and the founder and also the host.
That's right.
We've been having a really, really good conversation, and I appreciate you being here again. Want to give our audience some fun questions, and then there's a little something that they get to learn about Philly as well, because the audience is outside of Philly, so they don't know everything about Philly. But this is the age-old question.
Yep.
Where is one of your favorite places to get a cheesesteak from?
So I live in Fishtown.
Okay.
And I love going to Joe's.
I knew you were going to say Joe's when you said you live in Fishtown.
I love it. I've never, I've been to so many cheesesteak shops where sometimes it's great, other times, it's just every time I'm there, it's great. It's awesome. And maybe it's because I, had spent a little too much time next door at Frankfurt Hall before getting, across that garage. But nice. I love it. Yeah. I mean, I love it. That's my favorite spot. That's my go-to.
Cool. Favorite Philly sports athlete?
I don't know Bryce enough yet, so we can't say that. But I bet that's gonna
change.
Yeah. I think it's either. I think I might say T.J. McConnell from the Sixers.
Okay.
That dude hustles, man. Comes off the bench, makes it happen. Runs around he's always hustling.
Did you see the game last night?
No, but I'm glad I didn't.
You would have been. I had my blood pressure up last night. Yeah. It was a crazy game.
I was following on my phone, and then I was out to dinner with people, and I saw they were kind of noticing. I kept looking at my phone, so I put it away. And
how far do you think they're going to go this year?
I don't want to jinx it.
all right. I can appreciate that.
I gotta see them get past the first round.
Okay.
Because if they don't. Man, after all the moves they made, it's going to be real rough for the city. But I think they will. I think they're the team to beat.
Cool. Favorite movie that's based out of Philadelphia?
Whoa. Movie that's based out of Philadelphia. I mean, does everybody say Rocky?
Some.
Rocky 2, right?
Some.
It's hard to beat, although I think Rocky's gotten a little cliche. I mean, it's super weird that we have a statue of a movie character, I think. But not like an actual person.
Not an actual person?
Right, yeah. Jeez. I don't even know.
So I'll give you mine.
Yeah.
So Eddie Murphy in Trading Places.
Yeah.
It was based out of, it's a very funny movie. It's based out of Philly. But I would just, if you think about it, it's a lot of movies that have been based out of Philly, like the Unbreakable series. Then you have the Rocky series, now the Creed movies.
Yeah, so I was thinking there's been a bunch of filming in Philly recently.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot. So I'm excited to see what those are and what they're going to be like in modern Philly, but I wouldn't even know. I don't watch a lot of movies.
Okay.
So I tend to watch the same ones over and over when I do finally sit down.
And get some time to actually do it.
That's right.
So in your pastime, when you're not podcasting, and even not doing your acapella thing, what is something that kind of just you feel at peace doing?
It's funny. I feel like this might be another cliche, and a lot of people might say this, but traveling.
Okay.
So I very, very much believe that as much as I love Philly, I can't get that sort of zoom out 30,000 foot view of my life when I'm at home, because when I'm at home, I got stuff to do. I got places to be. I got people to see.
Yep. Deadlines to meet.
Yeah. And you're just like, bop, 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 trying to hit. And when you're painting a mural, you got to take a step back and look at the whole thing. And then you're like, oh, wait, the nose is wrong. That tree's too small, stuff like that. So when I can travel, and even if it's a place I've been before, or it might even not be a crazy place that, will change your mind and perspective, just somewhere new, somewhere where I'm relaxed and I don't have so many obligations. At that point, I really, really can take a look at life and be like, oh, okay, this part that I'm doing makes sense. I feel good about that. This part, I was worried about. Why am I worried about that? It's not a big, you know what I mean? It's just this. It's very peaceful, and like I said, it's like that sort of 30,000 foot view of life, and I love that. And I'll be traveling this week to Colorado to see my sister, and Texas for South by, and I'm looking forward to kind of get, like I said, getting that view of where everything stands, because I feel like I can't get it when I'm in the day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. So last question, I would say maybe 5 years ago, no one was really talking about podcasting. Yeah. It was there, right? But I think right now it's just so hot.
Yeah.
And I think that podcasting, or I should ask you, how do you think that podcasting is kind of breaking through and kind of changing the world?
So I think the big difference now is that you talk to anybody and they know what podcasts are, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, when I was, there were people, I was telling my grandfather that I have a podcast. He's like, oh yeah, like radio that people can download. I'm like, you know that? It's like,
shout out to Grandpa, he knew what it was.
Oh my God, yeah, Pop, way to go. Because a lot of other stuff, he doesn't know what's going on.
Right.
And so, you have just, when regular everyday people know what it is, that's powerful because they're going to be listeners.
Right.
And then what's also equally powerful about it, more so than any other platform like Instagram and YouTube, is that it's completely owned by the creator. Yes. So you post something on YouTube, you post something on Instagram, Facebook, wherever other people, even sometimes like Spotify, iTunes, stuff like that, record labels, it's owned by where it's being held, like the company that's holding on to it. But our podcasts, we own that. We post it. It stays with us. If iTunes goes out of business and they're gone, doesn't matter. We still have our podcast and it's everywhere. So the low barrier of entry, which allows anybody to start one with just a couple microphones, plus the fact that everyone else knows about it and knows where to find them, is that magical combination. Yeah. And a lot of people think that, that it's kind of up and come, like it's too popular now. There's a lot of competition, and there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, but a lot of them are really bad, really bad and don't have any listeners. So there are very few that are really, really, really good.
Right.
So if you can, and also a lot of people don't start one because of how many people have one. They're like kind of like what I said earlier. Like, if I would have known that there were so many great podcasts already existing that talk to Philly people, I would have been like, oh, other people are doing it. I'm not going to give it a shot. So that there are a lot of people who don't do it who would be very successful, but just don't because they're afraid of the competition. But there's a lot of competition at the ground floor because because of that really great low barrier of entry. Anybody can create one, which is a good thing, but it also means that there's a ton of bad ones. So if you can just get yourself a step above, one floor above the rest, and have a high quality, well thought out show, you'll own the content. Everybody will know where to find it, and the world will be yours.
Amazing gem right there for anyone who wants to start a podcast. Kevin, you don't know how refreshing this is, because literally people were like, well, why would you have someone on your podcast that does a podcast?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of like conflict of interest? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like, I love to, pick the minds of other people who are doing the same thing, and we can get to talk about what we do.
We have more in common than anybody.
Exactly, right? And you taught me something today, a lot about some things about podcasting that I don't know, and I hope that it's vice versa.
No, the stuff that I've learned just by being here and seeing the operation, I'm like, oh, they got that piece of equipment. Oh, how they're doing that. Like,
yes.
I've been soaking it all in. So thank you for having me in.
And we say all this all the time that, especially here in Philly, no competition. We all have room to be amazing. And, you being able to be in the Amplify Philly house at South by Southwest, it's not just a win for you, but it's a win for me as a fellow podcaster to know that there's no limitations. Yeah. You can go to Texas and people can still be hype about Philly and podcasting. And that's really, really cool.
The rising tide raises all boats, right?
Yeah.
As long as it gets better, we're going to get better together.
Exactly. So again, congratulations on Q9.
Thank you.
Congratulations on South by Southwest. Congratulations about the podcast in general. We just love what you're doing here at the Lauren Reed Live Show and at Water Ice Radio. We're so excited that you were able to stop by. Tell the people where they can find you, like on your social media, and how they can find the podcast.
Yeah, so as you said, the show's called Philly Who, like Philly Who with a question mark.
Right.
It's on social, Twitter, Instagram at Pod Philly Who. If you want to follow along with me sometime, so I do have a blog and I have my own social media where I'll just kind of post thoughts, musings, things like that. PhillyKev.com on Twitter and Instagram at the PhillyKev.
Cool.
Would love to hear from anybody who's for some reason interested in what I'm up to.
All right. All right, and again, thank you, Kevin, for coming through. This is the episode of the Lauren Reed Live Show on Water Ice Radio. Make sure you guys are following us on all major streaming platforms, also on all social media. It's Lauren Reed Live and also Water Ice Radio. So around here, Kevin, we say the first time you come, you are a guest. The next time, you are family. So make sure you come back to the show.
All right.
We'll love to talk to you about some other stuff. It doesn't just have to be about podcasting.
Oh, yeah.
So our door is always open to you. Thank you guys for listening in today. Shout out to my homie Jay the Gentleman. He will be back for the next episode, everybody. So don't worry. And as you already know, not all superheroes wear capes, but sometimes they wear headphones. Peace. Have a good day.